Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Tonight, President Trump is sending additional troops to Los Angeles as protests against immigration raids continue. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The president has already deployed hundreds of National Guard troops without California's request or consent. Now, the state is suing the Trump administration. More on that in a minute. But first, Michael Yoshida has the latest from Los Angeles.
Protests rocked the Los Angeles area over the weekend in response to the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Dozens of people have been arrested as law enforcement says the protests have turned violent. Vehicles were set on fire, and law enforcement used flashbangs and tear gas to break up the crowds.
Last night was probably one of the most volatile nights that we had in the city of Los Angeles.
President Donald Trump deploying hundreds of National Guard troops, which he said was to protect federal personnel and property, despite no calls for them from California Governor Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass.
What was the reason that the president had to take the power from the governor and federalize the National Guard?
Authorities have declared all of downtown Los Angeles an unlawful assembly area. President Trump addressing the unrest from outside the White House.
The people that are causing the problem are professional agitators, they're insurrectionists, they're bad people, they should be in jail.
The National Guard is staging in at least 3 locations across L.A., including the Metropolitan Detention Center, where Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters was denied entry Sunday.
I need to get in.
They said, we're not letting anybody in, and slam the door. And so I didn't have an opportunity to talk with anybody.
In Los Angeles, Michael Yoshida, KPBS News.
California's Attorney General says the Trump administration's decision to federalize California National Guard troops is illegal. KPBS reporter John Carroll has more on how AG Rob Bonta says California's government will respond.
Bonta pulled no punches in a statewide Zoom news conference today. He says Trump's choice to insert troops into the volatile situation in L.A. wasn't only illegal, but also completely unneeded. 2,000 troops have now been called up. The state is now suing the administration, asking a judge to set aside Trump's order.
Sending them in only escalated the situation and contributed to the developments we saw overnight.
There is a history of federal mobilization of the National Guard. Since World War II, they've been deployed 4 times to help put down unrest. And in 1970, President Nixon used them to get mail delivered during a postal strike. And there were the times they were used surrounding civil rights and desegregation, once in the 1950s and twice in the 60s. But what's happening in L.A. is different, says Bonta. He points to the conditions he says must be present to activate the Guard, to help quell a rebellion, an invasion by foreign troops, or if the president is unable to execute federal laws with regular forces, that is, local law enforcement.
We think that the conditions required to invoke the statute here, 10 U.S.C. 12406, were absolutely not present, and thus the Trump administration's reliance on that section of the law was inappropriate.
Both Trump and border czar Tom Homan have suggested officials could be arrested if they do anything to interfere with federal authorities. Last night, Newsom dared the administration to arrest him, and today, Trump said this.
I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it would be a great thing.
I asked Bonta about that.
There's a lot of things I'm sure he'd like that doesn't make it legal. It doesn't make it constitutional. It doesn't make it lawful. So it's unfortunate that we have a president of the United States that is so reckless and irresponsible.
After Trump's remark, Newsom responded on social media saying that he never thought he'd see a president threatening to arrest a governor. He called it an unmistakable step toward authoritarianism. John Carroll, KPBS News.
In another escalation, U.S. Marines will soon head to Los Angeles. About 700 Marines from 29 POMs were activated today by the Department of Defense. Their mission will be to support California National Guard members who arrived over the weekend to protect federal property. And over the weekend, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth suggested the Marines might come from Camp Pendleton. Those opposed to military involvement held a demonstration Sunday at Camp Pendleton's entry gate. One of the organizers is an Air Force veteran.
We want them to see the citizens that they could potentially be ordered to march against. They're everyday people, just like the families that they come from, and we don't think that it's right that they would be put into a situation that they're forced to potentially cause harm to us.
And we do want to reiterate that the activation announced today is for 29 POMs, not Camp Pendleton. Congressman Mike Levin says he sent a letter to the Secretary of Defense asking for more details. In the midst of rising tension over the Trump administration's immigration crackdown, a new travel ban also took effect today. Our Washington correspondent Julia Benbrook looks at why the administration says it's enacting this now and what it means going forward.
President Donald Trump's sweeping new travel ban is now in effect. As of Monday, most citizens from a dozen countries, mostly from Africa and the Middle East, are now barred from entering the United States. In addition to the 12 countries the ban applies to, it also imposes heightened restrictions on 7 others. Groups that provide aid and resettlement help to refugees quickly denounced the move. When Trump signed the proclamation last week, he framed it as a way to protect the United States, saying, quote, "We cannot have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter the United States."
The strength of the restrictions we're applying depends on the severity of the threat posed. The list is subject to revision based on whether material improvements are made, and likewise, new countries can be added as threats emerge around the world.
According to the guidance issued from the State Department, the ban applies to those in impacted countries who do not have visas issued before the effective date, and that visa applications from the affected nations will still be reviewed and approved as appropriate. Those exempt include dual nationals, diplomats, and government officials, as well as some athletes and coaches for major sporting events like the World Cup and the 2028 Olympics. Trump tied the announcement of the new restrictions to the recent terrorist attack in Boulder, Colorado. He said that it underscored the dangers posed by some visitors who overstay their visas. The man charged in that attack is from Egypt, a country that is not on Trump's restricted list. At the White House, I'm Julia Benbrook.
We have a sad update now to a small plane crash off the coast of Point Loma over the weekend. It is believed that there were no survivors. The Federal Aviation Administration released its preliminary report today. 6 people were on board, including the pilot, his wife, and another man, along with his 3 sons. The Cessna had taken off from San Diego International Airport for Phoenix before it went down around 1 p.m. yesterday. Our media partner KGTV spoke with an expert who says the Cessna 414 wouldn't necessarily go down if one of its 2 engines went out.
This is a twin-engine turbo piston airplane that can fly on one of the 2 engines. I think something that will reveal more information certainly is were there any radio communications?
An investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board is ongoing. This crash comes after another small Cessna plane crashed into a Murphy Canyon neighborhood just weeks ago.
It'll be a pleasantly cool night for us tonight as we get down to around 60, 61 degrees near the coast. A little bit warmer into those desert locations. Borrego Springs, 72 tonight, but it's going to get steamy there later this week with the heat building. Deserts are going to be scorching, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But Tuesday, we take another step up as the heat just begins to build. While the northwest cools, we continue to sizzle in the desert southwest. We'll have your full forecast in just a bit.
Tri-City Healthcare District has agreed to have Sharp Healthcare take over its hospital operations and finances. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Wynn has more on what this means for patients.
Tri-City, like many public health care districts in the state, has been plagued with financial issues since the pandemic. The deal with Sharp includes more than $100 million in investments to stabilize Tri-City's financial situation.
It also includes assumption of the debts and liabilities of Tri-City.
Dr. Jima is the CEO of Tri-City. He says the deal means increased access to care for North County residents. Tri-City serves Oceanside, Carlsbad, Vista, and the surrounding areas.
More primary care, specialty care, ambulatory services, delivering care where people want that care, and growth within our region to build what I believe will one day, in short order, be the flagship medical center in all of North County.
Tri-City has been looking for a partner for the past few years. Sharp and UCSD Health both submitted proposals in 2023, and the board chose UCSD. However, the deal fell through last year. This time around, both Sharp and UCSD submitted proposals again, but the board chose Sharp. Scott Evans is the Chief Strategy Officer for Sharp Healthcare.
This time, we really were able to answer all of Tri-City's requests in terms of what they were really looking for.
Tri-City closed its labor and delivery unit 2 years ago. The expectation is that this deal with Sharp will bring that back.
Sharp Healthcare delivers more babies in San Diego than any other healthcare provider, and so it is definitely one of our core strengths.
To be able to provide women's health services in ways that are not accessible currently in North County, to me, is truly one of the most exciting opportunities that lie within this partnership.
Since Sharp is a private healthcare system, the deal will need voters' approval. However, both sides say the vote is at least a year away. But Sharp has experience successfully navigating public-private partnerships. It took over the operations of Grossmont Hospital more than 30 years ago.
It is our East County flagship campus. I think we would be very fortunate to be able to create the same thing in Tri-City.
The two entities will still need to sign a letter of intent that is expected to be completed this week. Alexander Wen, KPBS News.
Federal guidelines for COVID-19 vaccine recommendations are changing to exclude healthy people under the age of 65. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says some advocates warn it could worsen health disparities, especially for low-income communities of color.
Pediatrician Marcia Spitzer remembers what it was like before COVID vaccines were available.
It was awful. It was awful. I don't ever want to go to that again.
She says the pandemic exposed deep health inequities.
And our most marginalized or under-resourced communities are the ones that were hit hardest by COVID.
The new vaccine policy change could hurt marginalized communities even more, says UC San Diego public health expert Cheryl Anderson.
We'll find that those who are in more vulnerable positions, whether it's economically or socially, are the ones who will have the greatest hurt or the greatest impact based on lack of availability.
Latinos make up 55% of California's frontline workers, putting them at higher risk of exposure. In San Diego County, they died from COVID at a higher rate than white residents.
And so all policies around vaccines really need to be thoughtful about the different environments that people have in the context of their lives that could then impact whether or not they're going to be likely to get an infection or not.
Research shows Black and Hispanic communities were hit harder by vaccine hesitancy, partly due to past medical mistrust and a history of racial discrimination, which contributed to lower vaccination rates. Spitzer worries the new policy changes will leave families confused about their options.
And anytime there's sort of confusion, that makes access harder. And I think it makes it most difficult for families who are already struggling with some of these decisions.
Community clinics like Family Health Centers of San Diego have a critical role in bridging that trust and education, she says.
I will continue to have those conversations with families, and I will tell them what my recommendation is based on the science.
Myra Alvarez with the Children's Partnership warns the policy shift could also lead some insurers to stop covering the vaccine.
It's almost $200 to pay out of pocket for a vaccine. And when you're talking to families, that $200 can help to go pay their rent, to pay for childcare costs, to pay for food.
Adults without insurance or with incomes below the poverty level were much less likely to get vaccinated than those with coverage or higher earnings, according to CDC data. A new NIH-funded study shows that 1 in 7 children under 6 who got COVID developed long COVID. Anderson says the risk remains.
So this policy should not leave anyone thinking that COVID is no longer a public health concern.
Experts stress this policy could deepen gaps in care unless public health agencies step up efforts to ensure access to vaccines, especially in the communities hit hardest by COVID-19 from the start. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
District Attorney Summer Stephan announced the launch of a new tool to address homelessness in our region. The DA demonstrated the new Shelter Ready mobile app this morning. The app connects people experiencing homelessness and outreach workers to potential available shelter beds across the county in real time.
It's a powerful and yet practical solution that reflects our core belief that homelessness is not just a public safety issue, it's also a public health and a humanitarian crisis. It demands urgent, coordinated, and compassionate action.
The DA says the Shelter Ready app has been in beta testing for several months and is now ready to be rolled out countywide. Poway City Council member Tony Blaine is under investigation by the District Attorney's Office, and that is according to the Poway Sheriff's Station. This video sent to KPBS by the group Recall Tony Blaine appears to show Blaine being searched by officers after Tuesday's City Council meeting. It is unclear in the video which agency was involved, but Sheriff's Lieutenant Colin Hebeler says it was the DA's office. Blaine has been accused of vote trading, threatening recalls against colleagues, and attempting to use law enforcement to silence critics. The DA's office says it's unable to confirm any potential investigations. And Blaine sidestepped the issue in a statement to KPBS, saying in part that he has been called up to active military duty and will not be attending any city council meetings until November. He says he will be monitoring and responding to city emails. The entertainment industry is seeing a slip in sales from recent tariffs. One business is a hand prop room in Hollywood that has supplied props for blockbuster films and TV shows. Veronica Miracle went behind the scenes to see what business has been like for them since the tariffs took effect.
In Hollywood, the entertainment capital of the world, there are signs of distress for the movie and TV industry.
The way you can kind of tell for the most part is just how full the aisles are.
Just ask Ronaldo Castillo of Hand Prop Rentals.
You really don't think about all of the different pieces that go into a set.
Every time you'll see luggage, whether it's a background or it's specifically cosplayed in the scene. For example, like this is Oppenheimer's bag in Oppenheimer.
From Oppenheimer to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, this prop rental company brings production sets to life. But recently, sales have dipped to unprecedented lows, down 35 to 40%, Castillo says.
When people think that, oh, it's Hollywood, who cares? You know, they're a bunch of rich actors and directors. It's like, yeah, maybe the 1%, but the rest of the jobs are blue-collar jobs.
Slowly and steadily, other states and countries have lured studios away from California with competitive tax incentives.
This isn't simply the strike. This is this long, ongoing malaise. It's significantly more threatening than any other period that we've seen.
This last couple of years have been pretty brutal.
You guys made it through the recession, but this is a harder time for you guys.
This is a much harder time, absolutely.
Even President Trump is weighing in. Last month, he called for a 100% tariff on movies imported into the U.S. made in foreign lands.
If you're Hollywood, you're terrified about that because the last thing in the world you want to do is have tariffs on your movies and other markets, especially when the world is over half of your revenue. Ideally, what you would have is a national incentive, a national tax break.
Everyone wants productions to stay here. It's just how you do it. And it's a different ballgame now where it's all by incentives. You know, people go shoot out of the country because they get a tax break. People go shoot in Atlanta because they get a tax break. So we, as the state of California, have to kind of just keep up with the times.
It's not just supporting staff feeling the lack of work. So are actors like Yanni King Monshine.
When was the last time that you were on a working set for a job?
What was that, February 2023?
Yeah. Over 2 years.
It's been over 2 years.
Like other talent, she moonlights as a waitress to pay the bills. But for the first time, her server side hustle is now her main job.
Is there a chance that LA is the next Detroit and that Hollywood doesn't come back to life?
No, I just don't. I feel like there's too much industry built into this city. So the next step is to bring it back.
Mayor, this is an iconic hallway.
Absolutely it is, and I think it's a perfect example of my executive directive because it should be easy to film at City Hall.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is trying to keep studios from leaving Tinseltown by cutting red tape.
California just isn't competitive anymore. How do you think we got to this point?
I think that we kind of assumed the industry would always be here. And I think we didn't realize how a number of policies that were put in place over the last several decades was actually making it more difficult. I think we didn't foresee that the industry would pick up and move. It needs to be cheaper, needs to be more economically attractive to film here. But while we're pushing for that in Sacramento, we need to do whatever we can to make it easier to film right here in our own city.
Wherever the business goes is where it goes. I will still be here. I will still be putting in my efforts. It's going to look differently than it ever has, and so that's something that I have to accept about where we are, but I'm not going anywhere.
Fairly decent start to the week here, and this Monday night and Tuesday morning will continue to be pleasant. But overall, as we zoom out and look at the big picture, temperatures are still on the rise across the next few days, and especially in the interior. The deserts are going to be scorching later this week, and they're already hot enough. There will be a little bit of an increase in the marine layer later this week, so those low clouds may persist another hour or two deeper into the day later this week if you're near the coast. But overall, we will all experience a warmer weekend. Now, it's all relative near the coastline, fairly pleasant still, but the deserts will be steamy. So tonight, becoming cloudy, 61 for your overnight low, and we're going to take a small step up with our temperatures from Monday to Tuesday, so tomorrow a little warmer. Still nice, though, near the coastline in San Diego County and Orange County. Nice places to be, at least if you're near the water. If you're going to be in the interior and working outside, it will be a scorcher. Getting a little hotter into Ramona, 88 there, but 106 into Borrego Springs. Just be prepared for it, and we'll be around 75 into Mount Laguna. Into Wednesday, we get hotter. In fact, we've removed the yellow from the coastal comfort there, comparing the Tuesday from Wednesday. So temperatures just stepping up a little bit more. Still not a bad time near the coast. We'll still be in the 70s, intermittent low clouds each day. Those clouds will be most persistent in the morning, and then they'll begin to give way to a brighter afternoon sky. Low to mid 70s, though, into the weekend. Inland areas here, we're going to be bouncing up a little bit. You'll notice a temperature rise there from Friday to Saturday. Saturday is going to be a warmer time for us. Still pleasant at night. Mountains, here you're going to find some relief from the worst of the heat. Will be in the 70s, but we may make a run to near 80 on Saturday. And as we step into the desert forecast, here's where we're scorching, and there's not much relief out there. 106 Tuesday, 107 Wednesday, and we're still going to be hovering in those 104 to 108 degree ranges here into Saturday and Sunday, with temperatures ramping back up from Friday to Saturday. Hot times in the deserts. It is that time of the year. For AccuWeather, I'm Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, California sues the Trump administration for deploying the National Guard after anti-ICE protests become violent. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
An art gallery in El Cajon that celebrates inclusion and expression is marking an anniversary milestone with a special show. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer says the artwork has been 25 years in the making.
Sophie's Gallery is a space for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities to explore their creativity through art. Lauren Heim is a student at the art studio and gallery.
My mosaic fish.
Her favorite work to date is an orange, white, and black fish in the ocean, made of tiny colored tiles. Besides underwater creatures, she also pieces together many other creations.
Like a mosaic cloud. A mailbox.
There might be some people that we work with that don't speak using words.
Erin Perschbacher is the art program manager at Sophie's Gallery.
Maybe they have an inner voice and an inner creativity that gets explored through the artwork that you might not notice or take the time to see unless you're learning about that through the artwork.
Students like Haim learn from professional artists on site. Visual artist Holly Pierce is an art instructor at Sophie's Gallery.
We do a little bit of everything here: weaving, mosaics, printmaking, painting.
The free classes are 5 days a week with roughly 200 student artists over that span.
So usually we have, like about 3 or 4 classes going on in here at once. And so the artists come in and they get a choice on what they want to work on.
What started simply as an art program at the nearby St. Madeleine Sophie Center in the 1970s grew into what is now Sophie's Gallery storefront. They're celebrating 25 years of that gallery with a special best of show.
Behind me here, it's kind of all throughout the gallery. We've got pieces that have been sort of in our archives for a while. Maybe an artist didn't finish a piece for a while and it was found and they were able to get those last mosaic tiles on it maybe.
The gallery is also a business. 40% of the art sales goes back to the artist. The rest is used to keep the gallery running. For Haim, making and selling her art is her job.
It really makes me feel proud when people buy my art.
The free Best of Show at Sophie's Gallery is open for the public to explore through July 7th. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. I hope you have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.